two of me. There's the ashen, obsessive, endlessly working Calvinist. And then, there's the other part of me that doesn't give a... See, I'm two people. I'm on two sides of the fence.
I just got more and more confused because it seemed as if he almost had a different life for each wife that he married, or each girlfriend even. And he was so different in his later life from the way he was when he was married to me. He'd visit me every once in a while, and he'd be in rags, and he'd be with a teenage girl, you know, and they would all be yellow and great big bags under their eyes, and I still somehow was holding on to the image of this man who had been so charming and lovely and delightful. I mean, the best husband you can imagine. I mean, better than the best you can imagine.
Nancy enters the picture. She had just been discharged from a mental hospital. She was scared, brittle, 21, and also diagnosed schizophrenic. She was pregnant. He married her. He describes her as a screamer who wandered in the night.
I think part of what was attractive to him was the idea that he would take care of her, that she really needed him. And of course, as I think so often happens in these situations, she ended up taking care of him just as much, if not more so. And Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which became the movie Blade Runner, was written, I believe, in 1966, pretty much just after they'd gotten married, although they'd been together for a little while. And I think that in some ways he wrote the book for her because she cared so much about animals and, you know, in Phil's thought, helpless living creatures and so forth, and that this kind of tenderness and human values, you know, deeply moved him, and he wanted to get that across in a book somehow.
Rachel said sadly, "Androids can't bear children. Is it a loss? I don't really know. I have no way to tell. How does it feel to have a child? How does it feel to be born, for that matter? We're not born, we don't grow up. Instead of dying from illness or old age, we wear out like ants."
Well, I mean, in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the idea, which is always, I thought, was central to what he's about, is what makes a human being. How do you define humanity or humanness? And it's that and that's the battle that goes on in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep between these androids who are almost exactly like a human being, and the only way you can tell is that they fail the empathy test, which is very hard to spot, and only experts can. But on every other level, they appear, they behave like human beings, but they're not.
You remember the spider that lived in a bush outside your window? Orange body, green legs. Watched her build a web all summer. Then one day there's a big egg in it. The egg hatched.
The egg hatched?
Yeah.
And 100 baby spiders came out. And they ate her.
Implants. Those aren't your memories. They're somebody else's. They're Tyrell's nieces.
He sets all of this, in the case of Androids Dreaming of Electric Sheep, he sets it all in a world which is very mundane, and his feet, despite the fact that his brain is floating in the heavens, his feet are firmly on the ground all the time, and he has a character who is killing these almost human beings to raise money to buy himself a real animal, because all he can afford at the moment, because the world has reached the stage where almost all the real animals are out of existence, and only the rich can afford real animals, or the upper middle class can. And he's owns an electric sheep, which looks just like an electric sheep. I mean, looks like a real sheep, but he's terrified of being found out by his neighbors that he can only afford an electric sheep and not a real sheep. Now that's a wonderful, wonderful situation. So his job is to kill almost human beings to get money so he can buy eventually what is an ostrich. He buys an ostrich. And then the great turnaround in that book is that the girl he falls in love with, who is not quite a human being, but he's in love with her despite that, when he reveals to her the truth of who she is, she's so outraged that she goes up and throws his ostrich off the roof of the building and kills it. Now that's wonderful. That's all I can say. It's great.
In exploring the theme of what is human, Philip K. Dick could be bitter about what was not human. He did believe that human beings could be androids, mechanical creatures who proceeded on the basis of cold duty, cold logic. There's a marvelous story called Human Is, in which an alien life form takes over a human husband and is a much kinder and better husband to the wife than the original human being was. And at the end, the wife is just pleased that the alien has taken over her horrible husband. Uniquely in Philip K. Dick's literary existence, there was one question he posed in which he found a consistent answer that satisfied him, and that is, human means kindness. It means empathy. It means kindness and empathy extended to all life forms, regardless of their exterior aspect.
I've always liked the scene at the end of Now Wait for Last Year, when our hero, he's flying somewhere in an automated cab, and as he's flying along thinking, he says to the cab mechanism, if you were married, and the cab says, sir, I'm a automatic mechanism, we don't have wives. He says, okay, well, if you were me, and your wife had sustained horrible brain damage and was only going to get worse so that the rest of your life would be devoted to simply caring for her, would you stay with her or leave? And the cab said, I would stay with her. And he says, why? And he says, because not to stay with her would be to say, I need reality adapted specifically to me. I can't handle reality as it exists. And our hero says, you're right, I'll stay with her. And the cab says, God bless you, sir, I can see you're a good man. And that's the end of the book.
Nancy left Phil in the summer of 1970. Then he didn't do any more writing, particularly novel writing, for about 2 years, 2.5 years, which is a very long time for him. What he was doing is he was taking more and more Benny's little speed pills and hanging out with the kids, the young people from around San Rafael. And, you know, taking more and more speed, Phil himself was you know, sleeping in strange cycles and probably becoming more and more paranoid.
It depends a little on what you mean by paranoia. If you mean a psychotic conviction that you're being persecuted, which is not in accord with reality, I don't think I had that. But boy, I sure thought the cops were watching everything I did. And I was correct. I was tipped off by the criminal underground that my house was being watched and that eventually my house would be hit, my files would be opened, my papers would be taken, and so it came to pass. As I said in the Rolling Stone article on me, when I came home and found my house consisting of nothing but rubble, ruins, chaos, broken windows, smashed doorknobs, blown open files, I said, thank God I'm not crazy. I have real enemies. It's a tremendous relief to discover that somebody really is after me.
He'd written me this fascinating letter in 1972 about this terrible thing that had happened, and, you know, how maybe it was the local far right-wing militiamen who'd broken into his house, but maybe it was the FBI, or maybe it was the Black Panthers and so forth. Every time that Phil would describe a theory, would get into a particular possible explanation of what had happened to him, that became the truth as he was telling it, and he could give you all the reasons why that was so, and you would be completely convinced that that's what must have happened. And then he'd say, well, but on the other hand...
My attorney said it was the government. There was no doubt that it was the government. But what they were looking for, I don't know. What they thought I was doing, I don't know. I don't even know if it was the government.